All right, so in this lesson, we're going to talk about something called absolute value. Absolute value, in order to understand it, you need to make sure that you remember our rules for integers because they will become important with absolute value. So your goal for this lesson is I can determine the absolute value of an integer. And remember, you can always pause the video, fast forward, and rewind if you need to. Okay, so what is absolute value? Absolute value is the distance an integer is from 0 on the number line. So here you have a number line. I have 0 circled because that's the most important number when it comes to absolute value. So if I asked you, what is the absolute value of -5? All I'm asking you is how far is -5 away from 0? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the absolute value of -5 is 5. Now, there's two ways to ask somebody about absolute value. You can say, what is the absolute value of -5? Or you can use the symbol for absolute value, which are two large bars, just like that. And so, what this says right here is what is the absolute value of -5? And the answer is 5. Okay? Now another quick example, if I said what is the absolute value of 3? Again, how far is 3 away from 0? 1, 2, 3. So the absolute value of 3 is 3. It has, sometimes people get it confused with the opposite. I'm not asking you for the opposite of the number. So the opposite of 3 is -3, but that's not what I'm asking you. What I'm asking you is how far is it away from 0? And so your answer for absolute value is going to be positive. But there's some exceptions to that rule, and I'll show you in just a second. Okay, so let's look at some examples. What is the absolute value of 4? Well, I'm going to go ahead and just circle 0 on my number line because, again, that's the most important number. So here's 4. What's the absolute value of 4? 1, 2, 3, 4. So the answer is 4. What's the absolute value of -8? So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. What's the absolute value of -3? We're going to go 1, 2, 3. And then what is the absolute value of 10? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay? All right. Now, here's where we start to get into some more difficult absolute value problems. Okay? You're going to see some things that are outside of the absolute value of the absolute value bars. So again, I'm just going to circle our 0 here so that we have it. So what I usually teach my students to do is whenever they see an absolute value bar, I want you to circle it. And notice how I'm only circling the bars and what's inside of it. And that's because when I start to add other things to the problem, it allows you to focus on solving the absolute value first. So this says negative absolute value of 1. So I circled my absolute value bars. What is the absolute value of 1? 1. But then I have this negative outside. So I have to add it to the 1. So -1. There's a difference between negative absolute value of 1 and the absolute value of -1. I am not asking you this. I'm putting the negative outside the bars on purpose. All right, what is the absolute value of 0? How far is 0 away from 0? 0. Okay? Now we're going to get a little bit more tricky here. So again, circle your absolute value first. What is the absolute value of -6? 6. And then rewrite the rest of the problem. And now, what is 2 plus 6? 8. Okay? Again, I see an absolute value. I'm going to circle it. What is the absolute value of -7? 7. And then rewrite the rest of the problem. What's 7 minus 5? 2. All right, so the floor activity we did in class, but I can't do it over the video. All right, so I want you to go ahead and try these. Remember, circle the absolute value first and solve that first, then rewrite the rest of the problem. All right, if you're not done, pause the video. If you are done, let's go ahead and check our answers. The absolute value of 12 is 12. The absolute value of negative 150 is 150. Here I have the absolute value of negative 8 plus 2. So the absolute value of negative 8 is 8. 8 plus 2 is 10. Here I have two absolute values, but again, I just circle them both, solve them both, rewrite the problem. The absolute value of 6 plus the absolute value of 5. Absolute value of 6 is 6. Absolute value of 5 is 5. 6 plus 5 is 11. Here I have the absolute value of negative 19 minus 17. So I circled the absolute value of negative 19, which is 19. 19 minus 17 is 2. Here I have two absolute values again in the same problem. The absolute value of 84 minus the absolute value of negative 62. The absolute value of 84 is 84. The absolute value of negative 62 is 62. 84 minus 62 is going to be 22. All right, that is the end of the absolute value lesson. If you have any questions, make sure that you ask me in class.